All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Down South Fantasy Football Podcast. Here, as always, your host, Haley, on a beautiful rainy night here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We survived the storm. Everything's good down here. We have another guest. We're on a roll. We got 2 weeks in a row. And please don't confuse our names. It might be a little hard, but I'd like to introduce Mr. Daly to the show. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad you made the commitment to come on. We've had this put together for about 2 weeks now, so it's good to finally get you on here. See what you got to say about the league.
I'm always happy to support fellow members of the media.
We appreciate that. Looks like we keep rising. We hit a new high in views on our third episode last week, so the word's spreading about our show.
Well, I got a tough act to follow. You and Rye Guy had a good time, so hopefully I can light a candle to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. I'm still figuring things out too. So as I'm going, I'm learning, and I'm sure we're gonna have a great show going forward.
Sounds good.
All right. So before we get into the Week 3 results, you drinking a beer tonight?
I am not drinking a beer, but I do have a stout glass of Jameson. So cheers to you, sir.
All right. There you go. Well, I'm going back to Miller Lite. So let's take things off. First game we're gonna go through. Actually, a matchup between the both of us. You got the better of me here. I made some bad plays, and that would really cost me. If I would have made the right plays, looks like I would have won by 10 points, but that Deshaun Watson touchdown and drive at the end of the Giants game really screwed me over. Those garbage time points, was not a fan of that. Watching the game, I almost knew that was coming. Watson, your only guy over 20 points. You still had a solid performance from Sammy Watkins, who put together 2 good back-to-back weeks. Who knows if that's something going forward. You did have Mike Williams of 24 points on the bench and Kyle Rudolph of 18 on the bench. For myself, I had AP go over 24 points, and then a nice turnout from my man Emmanuel Sanders, continuing to have a solid year. Unfortunately for me, I could have started Garoppolo, Geronimo Allison, Sterling Shepard, Tyler Eifert, and with that, would have won, but, can't live in the past, gotta move on.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but if looking at your roster, I don't know how many people I would have started over the people you chose. I think going into the week, you definitely made the right decisions. Tough week for you, losing Jimmy G. Had a lot riding on him this season with Marquise Goodwin. Was really kind of hoping that, Marquise would get back on the field and give me a little bit of something, but I don't know what I'm going to get from him now without Jimmy G there, so tough break there, but you got plenty of good quarterbacks behind him, so I think he'll be fine. Shepard, I think, for you is interesting going forward just because he's been very good when Ingram's not on the field.
I agree.
We don't really know how long Ingram's going to be out for, and, whoever's catching the ball after OBJ seems to do pretty well. That being said, Barkley's there now, so no telling how that's going to affect things, but I think Shepard's going to get plenty of targets here moving forward. So that should be a nice little break for you.
Yeah, I agree. I did just see maybe an hour or two ago, it looks like Ingram's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. So looks like I'll get at least 2 solid weeks or what should be solid weeks from Sterling Shepard. But yeah, Ingram going down, not great for the Giants, but good for my fantasy team for the next couple weeks.
No, absolutely. And I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised to see my Clemson boys having a couple of good weeks here together. Between Sammy and Mike Williams, I was very hesitant on that trade I made with Devontae Adams. I think the jury's still out, but this is definitely encouraging. I like this to go down as one of my better trades. Lord knows I've made enough bad ones. So we'll see what happens here moving forward.
Yeah, we've all been on the short side of this stick, but I mean, Mike Williams, the catches here he's making are awesome too, and both of them, him and Sammy Watkins, are in pretty high-powered offenses. The Chargers expected their defense to be a little better this year, but they're dinged up, and they got Joey Bosa not playing, so they're not getting a pass rush. So Rivers is tossing it a little more, and the Mahomes story continues for now. So both those offenses are just high flying at this point.
I'll tell you what, Mahomes is this year who I needed Deshaun Watson to be. So I thought Watson would be from last year. He's basically Deshaun Watson this year, but he's been phenomenal. He's been fun to watch. Means great things for Sammy. I think Sammy's never really had a home in the NFL. He's been bouncing around a little bit, never got comfortable on offenses, and as he's learning the system, it doesn't really seem like the system matters in Kansas City because Mahomes is the kind of guy he's going to find whoever's open. So he's creating opportunities for Sammy, which I'm happy about. I hate to see a two-time reigning champion having the number one quarterback who's on historical pace leading the charge for him, but
that's
it's fantasy football, so just got to button down and try and come with something better.
Yeah, exactly. Got to find scour the waiver wires these next couple weeks. Look for those guys that can help you win the rest of the way. Which Lord knows that's something I need right now.
Yeah, I gotta say your running back core is looking a little thin. So I got Aaron Jones coming back here. We'll see what he does, and maybe we can get together offline and talk a little trade.
We can see about that because putting my lineup together for this coming week was hard with the bye coming up.
Yeah, byes are tough. It's bye week.
So moving on to the next game, we got J-Way Bella taking down my guy Tucker. 146.44 to 125.04. J-Way Bella just had really great games all around, minus Kirk Cousins. I mean, you had Hyde, Fuller, Thielen, and Kelsey all going over 20 points. Plus, Gordon still had 15. Cook still had 16. On the bench, he could have had more points with Carson and Crowell in there, but Crowell played on Thursday night, and nobody expected Carson to get over 30 carries. So that was interesting and kind of a fluke. On the other side, you got my guy Tucker starting his brand new quarterback in Fitzmagic. Even though he had 3 interceptions, he still got 28 fantasy points. Kamara, as usual, 26. And then, you had O.J. Howard, Chris Ivory, and Yeldon on the bench. That's actually, when I looked at this, I was surprised he went with the Corey Grant start here. I know Leonard Fournette was a late pull, but I still would have went with Yeldon's start there.
Yeah, especially if you have one PPR. His usage in the passing game has been consistent across the board, and especially with Fournette going down, you can only expect that to increase his touches as far as the carries go. So I'm with you there. I think I definitely would have given Yeldon the start.
Yeah, and then, I don't have too much else for this game. J-Way Bell, he's put together 2 very solid weeks after opening the season with the only under 100-point performance. But, his receivers are just beasting, and Carlos Hyde he's had a great start to the year.
Who would have thought that looking at his roster this week that the last person we'd be talking about is Derrick Henry? From a running back perspective, he's got some production there out of Isaiah Crowell and Chris Carson, which is nice to see. Even Corey Clement outscored Derrick Henry, who I think everybody going into the season thought was going to be, the RB2 to Melvin Gordon for J-Way Bella, but just not proven to be the case yet. I think Tennessee's going to be playing from behind a lot this year, which is good for me having Deion Lewis. So I don't know what we're going to see from Derrick Henry this year, which I know is just disappointing to J-Way Bella, but man, he's bounced back very well after that first week where he, like you said, he was the only team not to put up 100 points, and his receivers are pretty scary, especially considering Will Fuller when Deshaun Watson's on the field. Will Fuller's a borderline wide receiver 1 week in and week out. That's been pretty consistent since the 2 of them have been together. So be interesting to see. I got to say, I don't know if I should say this for later, but he might be one of my favorites for the rest of the season here, J-Way Bella.
Yeah, looking at the roster, like you said, he's got the starting wide receivers. When he gets into the bye weeks, it'll be interesting. Zay Jones is garbage. Callaway, if he can catch a ball instead of dropping 7 of them in a half. And John Brown is known to have off weeks. Carlos Hyde, if he has a bad week or 2 in a row, they could start giving Chubb the ball more. So his team looks very good right now. But going forward, it's a wait and see game. And on the other side, I think my guy Tucker Still's a solid team. I mean, you got Diggs just had an off day. You got AB, Kamara. I like Rivers, who will probably play most of the way over Fitz the rest of the way. And then once Fournette comes down, I think he'll be fine. Just a bad week right there.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a starting lineup perspective, my guy Tucker is very solid. I don't know about his depth so much, but I agree with you. I think he'll be fine, week in and week out moving forward. He'll definitely stay competitive as long as he can manage the buys and, he doesn't have too many injuries. He should be in decent shape.
Yeah, and talking about bad trades, I gave up Kenny Galladay to move up 2 spots to take Anthony Miller, who, I think he'll be good, but Galladay, I didn't think Galladay was going to be this good this quick, so I got a little regret right now, but we'll see by the end of the season what happens.
Yeah, he's looking like the best receiver on that team, talent-wise, and I think anybody would say he passes the eye test. I know he's a favorite of Kyle coming into the season because of that. But I think the jury's still out. I think, the biggest thing holding back year end of the trade is Mitchell Trubisky. He's just not where people thought he would be at this point. He's being kind of buoyed by his defense. I think more than people realize. He hasn't been good. So that's been holding back that offense. And again, I think that's been masked by the defense. So we'll see. But at least you got rid of Kelvin Benjamin instead of Emmanuel Sanders, like I was trying to shake you down for. So you made one good trade.
Yeah, I think I've said it every week on the podcast. Sanders and Keenum just have that rapport. No matter how bad Keenum has played this year, Sanders has had a good game every week. So I'm happy with keeping him, happy with getting away from Benjamin, and Galladay we'll see. Going on to E-Walking Dead, Shooter Stab. We got Shooter Stab with a pretty big victory here, 127.9 to 93.42. It's tough to say that he played the wrong quarterback when he started one that put up almost 30 points, but the guy in his bench had 40. So either way, he was going to be fine. Robert Woods on the bench with 33 is tough, so easily, could have had 50 or so, 45 more points. And then E-Walking Dead got hurt with the Evan Ingram injury. Brady, after that first week, hasn't looked too great. And then you got one of his 4 tight ends on the roster, Dallas Goedert, had a big 23.8 point game. So we'll see what happens going forward. We mentioned the Ingram injury briefly before, and now interested if he's going to keep going 2 tight end sets, or, Christian Kirk had a decent week. Crowder, he's on a bye this week, but he had a decent week. Deshaun Watson, first 2 weeks were good. Golden Tate, still 12.9, and he's got Mike Wallace on the IR now, so going to be interesting to see what this guy does moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a cheeky play going 2 tight ends. I tried it the first week. It didn't work very well for me.
You and me both.
With the 1.5 point premium for tight ends, it's definitely not a bad move when you got the kind of names that he has at tight end with Ingram and Gronkowski. That injury to Ingram is definitely going to hurt him. I think leaving Tate on the bench any given week in PPR is a tough call, even going against the Patriots. But I think really all he needs is the Patriots to start playing like the Patriots, and it seems like this is what goes on every year. They start the season very slow, and you get some people asking, "Is this what happened?" And then next thing we know, we're wondering why we didn't stay with them for the Super Bowl, from week 1. So I think his season kind of rides and dies with the Patriots, but I think they'll be fine. Once they kind of get it together.
Yeah, and then I think it's going to be interesting. I think we've seen it. I want to say the last 4 years, where Brady has started slow and then killed it. But Gronkowski, he's going to have Edelman coming back, and he's got Josh Gordon coming back into the lineup. So it's going to be interesting who the defense hones on, because you'll have Edelman, Gordon, Gronkowski, Hogan, White out of the backfield. So any week, it's going to be tough to figure out if Gronkowski is going to be the guy, because as we know, Belichick just mind fucks everybody and does the opposite of what you think he's going to do.
Oh yeah, he hates your fantasy team. I mean, I think I hate it for Rex Burkhead, but one of the best things that happened to my team all season was him going on IR today. Because I don't have to worry about am I starting him this week or James White. But to your point, Brady's going to have exponentially more weapons in the coming weeks than he's had to start the season, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But I think Gronk will be fine. I think he's going to get his, especially in the red zone. There's no denying that rapport between him and Brady, and he's just such a big target over the middle of the field that, at any moment he can go for, a 10-point play or, 11 and a half now, given the scoring.
Yeah, and I mean, their defense hasn't performed very well, so they're going to be throwing it. I think Gronk will be fine. He'll have those couple weeks where it won't be what you expect from him, but I think the ball's going to get spread around, and that's going to be a fun offense to watch after this week.
I'm with you 100%. I'm interested to see what happens on the other side of this matchup with David Johnson. That's been an interesting storyline for the season to me. It's just been the usage that he hasn't had, and just how anemic that offense has been. It's been kind of painful to watch Arizona play each week. And with that, your stud RB1 like that, giving you the production you need, it's going to be hard for Shooter Stab to keep this production up moving forward. That's something I'm watching closely. I think Devin Funchess is kind of hurt having a upcoming bye week, just because he played very well when Greg Olsen has been on the field. But now that he has a bye week here, it sounds like Olsen's on track to get back sooner than later. So I think he has a couple of good weeks coming up from Devin Funchess. AJ Green, we've seen what he can do. Just last week, it was last week I think when he had 3 touchdowns. So that
week 2.
He's fine there. But LaShawn McCoy, no telling what's going to happen with him from an injury or a legal perspective. Alfred Morris, I think, is going to get fed some work if Breida misses time moving forward. And then after that, Robert Woods, I think he'll be all right. Landry, there's no telling what he's going to do with Baker Mayfield. I'm higher on him than I think most people are, but I think this is a team to watch also. I think he can make a nice run at it. He's got solid quarterbacks. David Johnson, even becomes half of what he was in years past. I think this team can make a nice little run as we push towards the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if things fall in the right place, I think what you're worried at is Jared Cook. I mentioned it last week. The past 3 years, he's had 3 total touchdowns. But, I mean, he put up 10 points at the tight end position. There's a lot of guys injured this year, so that's fine. I see him having some bad weeks moving forward. Kenny Stills, he can have a couple bad weeks. Robbie Anderson, I think, is droppable at this point.
I agree.
Lindsey, we'll see what happens after he got ejected, what the team wants to do. I'm not as high on this team, but they're definitely intriguing. Like you said, if Johnson can do half of what he did last year, if McCoy is on the field, if Morris gets playing time, does something with his runs, Woods is going to get fed. That offense is insane. It's the new Saints offense. That's what it is. So we'll see what happens there going forward. Moving on to the 4th game from last week, we got Believe in Bell over Silverback Nation. I called this the nail biter of the week, and that's what happened. Other than our game, this is actually a pretty similar score than what we had. 120.6, 114.8, and this one was, where are we at here? 120.36 to 114.16. So almost the exact score here. As we mentioned early, Mahomes still having a great year. I'm waiting for it to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. I thought the interceptions were going to come, but, I mean, he's cruising. Michael Thomas, mentioned it last week. He's my fantasy football number 1 wide receiver going forward the rest of the season. Kittle looked good. Should be interesting the rest of the way. The backup quarterback, will that help or hurt him? Checking down to tight end, or is Bethard just not even going to be that good or reliable? Jordy Nelson with a nice 29 spot on the bench, but, I mean, Jordy hasn't done anything before that where you would start him. On the other side, Goff had another big day, as well as Juju, big Juju guy. But, I mean, Kenyon Drake, unfortunately, in that offense, you don't know what you're getting from him. Keenan Allen, his numbers aren't there. T.Y. Hilton, just 10 points. Jimmy Graham with 12. He's had a couple good weeks so far. I've been surprised to see that. Kerryon Johnson was on the bench, but that's about it there. Kind of played it as well as he could have. Looking at this team a little further, obviously Believe-in-Bell is a crazy team. They're really good, but there's a couple guys on Silverback Nation that there's just some big question marks on going forward, especially, I'll say, T.Y. Hilton. Andrew Luck got pulled at the end of the game because he can't throw the ball far. And that's what T.Y. Hilton has made his living on. So I think he's just not going to have a great year overall.
Yeah, didn't they put Jacoby Brissett in for a Hail Mary attempt?
Yep, because they didn't think that Luck could get it there.
Yeah, that's not a good sign, especially for a deep ball threat like T.Y. So I'm with you 100%. I'm definitely keeping an eye on that one. But this was a fun matchup. It came down Monday night, and it was something. I was watching this one close on Monday. Between Godwin and Juju. Unfortunately Juju didn't quite get it there for Rusty, but this is a tough team to go up against. He's a two-time, not reigning champ, but back-to-back champion for the first 2 seasons. He's got Pat Mahomes, like you said, playing out of his mind. I do think there's some regression coming with Michael Thomas and Pat Mahomes. I'm kind of on your side with that. I think there's some interceptions coming.
Yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time before some defenses figure out how to take Michael Thomas away. And this production from the Saints offense, it's not sustainable over a 16-game stretch. So, I definitely think there's some regression coming for this team here, but he's got some depth. He's got Cooper Kupp on the bench. Jordy, I'm with you. I don't think there's a whole lot more games like this coming, especially with Martavis Bryant, back on the team and learning the system. And, I think it's only a matter of time before he starts to take some targets away from everybody else. But he's got some solid running backs. Once Mixon gets healthy, it looks like, Sony Michel, they're intent on using him. Burkhead's out on IR, and, Le'Veon Bell could be back any week. So, tough team to go against. I think Rusty gave it a good fight. I'm with you on Team Juju. He's looking pretty good. I think I'm a little bit higher on Jimmy Graham than you are, just based on the offense and who's throwing him the ball and, the caliber of tight end we've seen him be in the past. I think any week could be a 25-point week from Jimmy Graham. Just depends upon the game script. So I think this team for Silverback Nation is kind of made or broken by T.Y. Hilton. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
Yeah, him and Kenyon Drake, that's a tough one too. They're just not giving him the ball enough in Miami. If you watch their past 2 games, they had a touchdown on a punt. They had a bunch of gadget plays they've been running, so who knows what's going on there. You could see some regression in Kittle. Bell, I don't see Bell coming back until week 10 when he has to, because if he doesn't come back by week 10, then he can't become a free agent. So I think week 10 he comes back and then sits if he's not traded. And then I just always got to throw this in. Corey Davis is still not as good as Kareem Hunt.
No, it definitely is not. I know that's a soft spot for you. You took that one kind of to heart from those guys over the podcast who are very good at saying a whole lot of nothing. I think we've already got more content in this 20-minute podcast that we got here than they had in their entire hour. And it's funny because they said at the beginning, Kyle pointed out that he paid us for a 12-team league and this is a 10-team league, and then all he did was proceed to talk a little bit slower. So those guys don't know what they're talking about. But, I think Corey Davis, he's been getting a ton of targets. He's commanding the target share in Tennessee. He's just, it's just one of those offenses that we thought was going to be much better than this coming into the season, and they have been able to put it together. Injuries have kind of played a part in that. So, that should improve moving forward. But we'll see. I definitely think, though, that you got the better end of the Kareem Hunt, Corey Davis deal. So good job there.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that, I think it hurts that Delaney Walker got injured. Even though he's a tight end compared to Corey Davis being a wide receiver, they don't need to worry about whatever tight end's on the field for him now, so they can focus on the number 1 receiver. And then, they had 100 passing yards last game, so That team's just in shambles. Kyle and I, first week, talked about we were both high on them this year. Turns out we were wrong. That happens when people get injured. Going into the last game, last recap, we got Built for the Future over Johnny, I Want to Score More, which you really need to because you're with me at 0-3. This game was 127.98 to 108.6. So we got Devontae Adams had a nice game. Mike Evans going over 20 points. Todd Gurley doing his usual over 20 points. But then on the bench, you had the Rams defense. Instead of the Vikings, I mean, nobody predicted that Josh Allen was going to amount for 4 total touchdowns and just whoop on the Vikings all day long. That game was ridiculous.
That was probably one of the most. I'll put it this way. I have Latavius Murray in all kinds of lineups in Daly Fantasy this week, and
yep.
I could have sworn I was taking home a Millie Maker, and I finished, I think, in the bottom 10% because of him. So, crazy game. Never saw that coming. I don't think anybody in their right mind could have even possibly fathomed that result was coming. But, I don't know that I would have started the Vikings there over the Rams anyway, with just how good they've been.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting going forward. They're playing each other this week coming up. Rams got a couple injuries.
Yep.
And that game was a 16.5-point spread, so anybody who said they picked the Bills, you're just a Bills fan then. And on
I don't think they're a Bills fan. I think they're just lying.
that could be the other thing as well. On the other side, you hate to see a 40-burger on the bench.
That's tough.
Calvin Ridley, he went off last week, and it didn't matter what cornerback they put on him, he scored on all of them. Who did they play last week? It was the Saints. They put Marcus Lattimore on him, and once they did that, then Julio gets open right down the middle of the field. So, I mean, they just had no answer for him. Going to be interesting to see what happens going forward in this lineup. Obviously, Hopkins is going to be a weekly start. You're going to have Edelman coming back. Marvin Jones has had an okay season, but with Galladay there, we're not sure. So Ridley could make his way into this lineup as early as this coming week. And then other than that, Buck Allen had a big game finding the end zone. Saquon Barkley, first win for the Giants. He gets another rushing touchdown. Carolina defense had a nice 10 points for him. You always like to see your defense getting double digits. But yeah, I mean, this is a lot of question marks on this Johnny, I want to score more team, especially when you got Rodgers hobbling around out there. That's never good.
If I asked you this going into this week, which situation seemed more plausible to you, that the Saints and the Falcons will combine for 80 points and Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, and Alvin Kamara would combine for 0 touchdowns, or the Buffalo Bills would shut out the Vikings through four quarters, basically, and end up winning by 21 points. Which one would you have chosen?
Wow. Let's see. That's a good one. I don't know. I guess I would say I would go with the Falcons and Saints just for the pure fact that I know that Julio, he hasn't really found the end zone much the past 2 years, and that's the only differentiating factor there because, I mean, I just would have never expected the Bills, the way they've come out the first 2 games, to win the game, no less shut Minnesota out for, like you said, essentially the entire game. So if somebody said that to me, I would have put some big money on that.
Yeah, it was a weird week. I mean, to me, it was amazing seeing that those guys, between the 3 of them, had 0 touchdowns, and they still managed to have the production they had. But I think that kind of speaks to the opportunity that Ridley has there. And in Atlanta, whenever you're playing across from a guy like Julio Jones, he commands so much attention from the defense that it just creates opportunities for guys like Ridley. And they haven't really had a receiver in Atlanta that can do the things that he can do. So, I'm with you. I think he could find his way into Johnny's lineup here this coming week, especially with Hopkins, not playing poorly, but not being the receiver that, you thought he could be, at least not to this point. I may or may not have Julio Jones on the table for him at the moment. So we'll see how Johnny I want to score more response to that one. But I think he'll be fine once Edelman comes back. Once Cook comes back, once Ingram comes back. I think this is one of those teams to watch. If he can find some support there at tight end, which has become a very important position with the premium. Barkley's playing out of his mind. He's creating things that aren't even there. His offensive line, I think, is giving him 1.1 yard per point of contact, which is last in the NFL right now. So that, just speaks to what he's able to do from a personal perspective when he's got the football. But Buck Allen won't go away. He's a fantasy football zombie, just like Frank Gore. Frank Gore won't go away either. That's why we're seeing some of the bad numbers from Drake down there in Miami. But I'm still high on Johnny Allen Scoremer. I think his team turns it around. I think he just kind of had a bad beat with some injuries here to start the season and some suspension. So, we'll see what happens with him. But built for the future on the other side of the ball. It's a good team. He's kind of the 1B to Kyle's 1A. I think depending upon the matchups, some weeks he's the 1A and then other weeks he's the 1B. He's got Breida, who's I don't know if he's still leading the league in rushing yards, but he was going into this week.
Right.
He's got Miller, Gurley, Connor. Connor's playing well. He's just a pure volume-based running back, but he's doing something with it. Mike Evans can strike any week. He's got some other wide receivers there. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out for Bill for the future. If he can stay clear of injuries and manage his bye weeks, I think he'll find himself back down in the playoffs, making another run for it.
Yeah, it's a solid team all around. Like you said, Connor's a volume guy. Should be interesting if the Steelers get down big, how much they utilize him. But there's not much to not like about this team. Tariq Cohen hasn't done much. Alshon, he's going to come back soon. Dez, he's hoping that he signs with the Browns, I guess. We're going into week 4 now, and you haven't heard anything about it. Should be interesting, but that was a good trade by me there. Even though Allen Robinson hasn't done much, I did get a first-round pick as well, so I'll pat myself on the back.
Yeah, and hey, at least A-Rob's still playing in the league right now. Des Bryant, I haven't seen much out of him except for Hard Knocks, so we'll see what happens with him. I think he's done. I don't think he's able to create separation anymore. I think he's better in his own mind than he is on tape to other teams, and he wants way too much money. And, it's just not that kind of league when you can get, guys like Calvin Ridley on rookie contracts who can take the top off defenses and put up 3 touchdowns in a week and get paid next to nothing. So, besides the name and the ego, what are you getting with Des?
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, that's why he's not on a team right now. So going through 3 weeks, my overall predictions, I'm at 10-5. Not too shabby.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, and like I said, mentioned last week, 3 of those losses are predicting my own team to win. So, take those away and it looks even better. Now we got the week 4 predictions. Yeah, got to go with your own team.
Absolutely.
So we're going to start with Shooter Stab and my guy Tucker. I'm going to let you start this one off, sir.
Well, this is the Brother Bowl, so I think this one's going to be fun to watch. I definitely have to give the edge to my guy Tucker here, just based off of bye weeks alone. Shooter Stab's not going to have Cam. Drew Brees is playing with the Giants, who I think are probably going to be one of the better defenses that he's faced so far. So we'll see what they're able to do against him. Devin Funchess is out. Johnson's not playing up to caliber, and after that, his running back too is Austin Eckler this week. Alfred Morris, if he's healthy and breathed out, nobody that really inspires a whole lot of confidence. Fitz has been garbage because of Bradford and his little dink and dunk play. Landry, again, I'm high on him. I think Baker Mayfield is going to be huge for that offense. I think he's going to have a great week this week at the Raiders. That could be a pretty high-scoring game.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I'm very interested to watch that one. But you look at these lineups, and with the bye weeks and injuries, you got to give the edge to my guy Tucker. I think Phillip Rivers is in a smash spot against San Francisco. Fournette could be back any week, even if he's not. He doesn't really need him. He's got Kamara, who basically puts up enough points for 2 running backs. Anyway,
dude,
he's got Yeldon to handcuff Fournette or Grant. Brown, Diggs, Galladay. He's stacked. this should be an easy layup for my guy Tucker this week.
Yeah, I don't have it being as much of a layup, but I do have my guy Tucker winning. As you mentioned, Shooter Stab's got Cam and Funchess out. Green came down awkwardly, so it's interesting to see if he's going to be practicing towards the end of the week. Murray doesn't get a favorable matchup if he's gonna start him this week. I'm not sure if Cooks is gonna play since they're playing on Thursday night. Jared Cook, I mentioned earlier, I'm not high on him. Stills, it's a coin flip. Breeze could have a good day if Eli Apple isn't out there for the Giants. And then Landry and Fitz, you mentioned. Fitz will be Fitz. He'll catch balls at least from Rosen, who's going to be the starter moving forward. And, Landry, he'll catch balls, and it is a PPR league, so he'll be fine. I am getting a little higher on him, but I also think there is a ceiling there. And then on the other side, Kamara and Galladay, they have really nice matchups coming up. Jordan Reed's the only one on the bye week there. Diggs could have a tough matchup, but talking about it now, there were a couple injuries to the Rams secondary, so he actually might have a pretty good day. And then the second running back is going to be tough if Fournette can't go. Because if it's not Fournette, he's got Grant, Ivory, Penny, Powell, and Yeldon. So I'm assuming, but Yeldon is also questionable, so if neither Fournette or Yeldon goes, he's in a real pickle there. But yeah, I got my guy Tucker winning this one still.
Yeah, I think I'd be a little bit more worried about his RB2 situation if he didn't have Powell. I think, the Jets going up against the Jags, that pass rush, I don't think Crowell's going to be able to get a whole lot going, and I think there's going to be a lot of, dump balls from Darnold to Powell that game. So just from a PPR volume perspective, I think he'll be fine at his RB2. Hopefully he can catch some break with the injuries, but if not, I think Powell's a good start there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's interesting. I feel like even if they do get in that game plan, they're still going to try and run Crowell because, they just don't trust Powell to carry a workload for an entire game. So it'll be interesting there. I mean, the Jets are the Jets. Who knows what Darnold is yet? He's been up and down. So both of us have Tucker there. Moving on to Believe in Bell versus E-Walking Dead. Believe in Bell coming in with no bye weeks, or no players on bye this week, I should say. He does have Bell and Mixon out. He's got Mariota and Bernard questionable. I'm pretty sure Bernard's going to play, and he's going to play Mahomes over Mariota anyway, so those two really don't affect him too much. Mahomes against Denver should be interesting, more so for Denver's pass rush than their secondary. He is mobile. He can get out of a couple things, but they're also playing in Denver, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in the thinner air up there. Also, Kittle, we mentioned it earlier. I don't know if it's a good thing that he has the backup quarterback or if it's just going to be they're going to run the ball and just see what they can get out of this season. But Michael Thomas going against the Giants, he's going to get a lot of Janoris Jenkins. That's going to be a very fun matchup to watch. So I'm eager for that.
Yeah, me too. That one will be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good one. And then on the other side, E-Walking Dead, you got Christian McCaffrey and Jamison Crowder on bye weeks. He sends Mike Williams to the IR. He's got Ingram out. And not that it really matters, but J. Stu is questionable now. Not that guy, I mean, he's got to be dropped, Steve. But you look at the rest of his lineup, and that running back 2 spot. I mean, with McCaffrey on a bye week, obviously you got Lynch, who I'm not sure about him this week, but you got Chubb. That's it, Chubb. That's who has to play running back for him this week, who just hasn't been given the carries. So that's going to be a really tough spot. And then it will be interesting if he's going to buy in on Dallas Goedert after his big week, if he goes with Ebron, or if he puts Tate in there, hopes for a Deshaun Long touchdown, Christian Kirk, and then Brady and Gronk. They're going to be fine. They'll have a good week. Pat's defense isn't great, So there's just too many question marks, too many guys out there. I got Believe in Bell pretty big in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Believe in Bell runs away with it. And it's funny. I think one of the things with Patrick Mahomes that I'm excited about, you mentioned the thin air of the weather. The balls travel a little bit further in thin air. So I think this could be a huge Tyreek Hill game. If Mahomes can get himself a little bit of time or create some time in the pocket with that mobility you spoke of,
okay.
I think we could see some bombs this game from him. So that's something I'm watching for. You look at kicking production in Denver, and it's usually very good. You see some of the longer field goals coming from there just because of that thin air. So we'll see what happens there. I think, like you said, Bernard gets the start. Not a whole lot of bye weeks to concern him. Over on the other side of the ball, besides his number ones, all of his number twos are questionable to me at this point. Evan Ingram being out, you don't know if you're starting Ebron or Godet or if you're going to start two tight ends. I think his number two wide receiver is clearly Golden Tate, but he found a way to put him on the bench this last week, so we'll see what he does this week. McCaffrey, I think it's been encouraging to see him get the workload of a workhorse running back this year. It was a big question coming into the year, so that definitely hurts him being on the bench. But
yeah, almost 30 carries last week.
Together. Marshawn Lynch, I think, will get his work against the Browns. I think that's a better defense than people realize, so I don't think it's a huge Marshawn Lynch game this week. But there's just not enough depth there and way too many question marks. So this one's an easy call. Believe in Bell by a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, Lynch will get his work, but like you said, the Browns' defense is good, and they're going to be playing from behind because, the Raiders they're just bad this year. Cooper, I hate to say it, my man, Carr is just awful. I don't know what happened. He was in the MVP conversation a couple years ago. Guy has just tumbled down, so inaccurate. I really thought it was going to be a good year for him with them bringing Jordy in. He loves some Seth Roberts. Cooks it fine, and then Martavius Bryant was supposed to start the year there, got cut, comes back. So he's just having a tough time. I think the Browns get 2 wins in a row.
I do too. And I'd say it was a hotter take and save it for later, but I'm pretty high on that team this year. I think they're a lot better than people realize, and I think Baker is going to ignite that offense. So definitely going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as I'm not a fan of the guy as a human being, and he's just one of those people that just goes out and plays and he gets it done. And that's kind of all I can say about him.
Yeah.
Next matchup, we got Staunch Moderates versus Silverback Nation. Take it away, Daly.
This one, I think, should be a fun one. I think my Clemson boys are all going to get the start this week, so we'll see Sammy Watkins and Mike Williams try it out there as starters for the first time. Hopefully Julio can find the end zone against the Bengals, which would be nice. Maybe if I'm not stubborn and I start my Vikings tight end over my $65 tight end in Freddie Burton, I'll have a pretty good week here. We'll see, but I think Kerryon Johnson gets the start for Silverback Nation. I think he's in a very good spot with Sean Lee being out for the Cowboys. Their run defense is just not the same without him. Not so much from a playmaking ability standpoint, but he really he commands that defense on the line. And they're not the same defense without him. So I think he's in a good spot. It's a terrible team. I think Detroit goes up early, they stay up, and Kerryon gets fed the ball for the second 100-yard rushing game for a Detroit running back for the first time in God knows how long.
Probably the last time the Browns got a win.
Yeah, I thought that was funny to see the crowd go crazy over that.
They should have got like free tacos or something for that.
It's funny. But beyond that, Keenan Allen, I think I don't know how to feel about him this week just because the 49ers, I don't know how much of a fight they're going to put up. So, he could get a couple big plays early, and that's going to be about it. I think Juju is going to go off this week. I'm very worried about him. I kind of need Julio to keep par with him to be competitive if I have a chance. I'm definitely not worried about T.Y. just because what we spoke about earlier. Luck is not the same. He's not 100%. He's more of a deep threat than anything. Howard, I think, we'll see how that game goes. Is that the high-scoring game? then Howard could be negatively affected. But my Bears defense, I'm sorry, they've been phenomenal to this point. They've been the best defense in football, in my opinion, through the first 3 weeks. So if they can keep the Buccaneers in check, I don't know, it may hurt me because of Howard getting some work there at the end of the game. I think Goff is going to have a bad week because of the Vikings. So we'll see. I think I'll call this one my nail biter of the week. I think this one's going to be pretty tight.
Yeah, I got this as a close game as well. Nobody on bye for you. The great Ian Thomas on bye for Silverback Nation. So, staunch moderates, you got Burkhead going to the IR, you got Freeman not playing this week, and then on the other side, you got Baldwin that's not going to play. Most likely not going to play. They give him the questionable tag. So, you said you're going Mike Williams, you're going Sammy Watkins, you're going Julio Jones. I'm interested to see which one of your running backs you pull, because you mentioned earlier you think Deion Lewis could have a big week. Zeke is Zeke. He's going to get his. And with Burkhead out, James White's going to catch some balls. So that'll be an interesting lineup to see before Sunday kicks off. On the other side, Goff, you mentioned, question mark. Kenyon Drake, you just can't trust him. Juju, he's going to do well, but it's a tough defense that he's going up against. He's got the Jags that have a very favorable matchup. He's got Allen. You're right. He's he could get a couple touchdowns early. Howard, he's been more involved in the pass game than everybody was expecting. They said he was working on his hands over the summer, and it's shown. So even if they do fall behind, I think he still plays more than people think, but he will get spelled by Cohen. And Hilton with Luck in there, it's tough, but he does have a pretty good matchup this week, so I think he'll be okay. It's going to be a close one. I'm going with Silverback Nation here. I just think, especially Sammy Watkins, 2 weeks in a row. Well, actually, it would be 3 weeks in a row. That's going to be tough to do, especially when you see Mahomes targeting Kelsey more. I think they're also going to get Hunt a little more involved into the passing game. He saw 1 target last week. I think that goes up to, it won't be much more, 3, 4, 5, something like that. But it's going to take receptions away, targets away from somebody. So, yeah, nail biter, but I got Silverback Nation here.
Sounds like we need to make a bet, sir.
All right. We can work something out, either before the end of the show or offline.
I think we'll have to do that. Maybe a case of beer for a bottle of Jameson, a case of Miller, just because I can't let you disrespect me here like that in person. So
hey, that's what this is about, man. We're not playing nicely. We're going after each other.
Who do you have between the Patriots and the Dolphins? Because I think it's interesting. If the Dolphins win this game, they're going to be up for the Patriots by 3.5 games, I think, for the first time in a very long time. So that's a huge game.
I have a couple of friends that are Dolphins fans, and I've seen some things on social media where they're just taking pictures of their standings right now and just posting it, saying, "I don't know if I'll ever see this again." So I think the Dolphins have won, but they haven't won any game convincingly. I think the Patriots win. I think Brady probably, on his period, getting a little ticked off, yelling at people. They're going to be fired up. They're going to go in there. I actually think the Patriots win this one pretty easily. I'd say at least a 2-touchdown win.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit closer than people think. I think the biggest storyline out of Miami this year has been Ryan Tannehill's ability to spread the ball around. There's really no one clear-cut wide receiver. Even from the tight ends, just a pure number one receiver there. So I think this is a big game for Drake, though. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think there's going to be more points scored here than people think, and I think Drake's going to benefit from that. Should keep Frank Gore off the field, but I'm with you. I think the Patriots pull out in the end, but I think this is probably one of the more fun games to watch this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be, whoever the Patriots have played in their division, people don't really care about it too much. This game, people are really going to be watching because it's 3-0 versus 1-2 in the rest of the division. So, I mean, it's going to be a good game from, for the first couple minutes, and then I unfortunately can't go against the Patriots, especially with this slow start. They know they got Edelman coming back next week. They want to at least get to 500 and then just keep cruising afterwards.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. But before we move on to the next game, we're making it official, a case of Miller versus a bottle of Jameson.
Yeah, put it on the books. It's official. Everybody watching is a witness.
Let's do it.
All right. So we got that. We got a case of Miller for a bottle of Jameson. I got Silverback Nation. You have yourself, Staunch Moderates. And now, moving on to the fourth game of the week, we got Built for the Future versus J-Way Bella. A game that has no buys in it. Just a free agent and Des Bryant. And then, so Built for the Future, you got that. You also got Ajay and Jeffrey, questionable. Beretta, questionable. I think he plays. He got hurt early in the game, got back in there. So you got Gurley going up against the Vikings Thursday night. Interesting matchup for him. He's still going to do well. I just don't think he's going to do as well as he's done. Mike Evans, I'm not a big Mike Evans guy. I think he had a big week last week. I think he can have a mediocre week. And then James Conner, you just never know. He had a huge week one. But if you saw in the first week or the first half of the game Monday night, he only had like 3 carries or so. So it's going to be dependent on game script for him because he catches the ball, but he doesn't catch it too much. So that's interesting. He's got Wilson, who's fine. Miller actually gets a good matchup, even though I don't really think he's a very good running back this year. He's got Adams and Ernst that are gonna play well. And then J-Way Bella, who's suddenly hot. You got Foreman, who inactive, and then Mack, who I'm pretty sure is going to come back this week. They released a running back recently, so I think that means he's going to play this week. Whether it's a lot or not, it's to be seen. Cousins has a tough matchup, even though the secondary of the Rams is a little battered. They still have a good pass rush, and Cousins just hasn't looked very good. You got Brandon Cooks. He's got a decent matchup. Still a little questionable on him. And then Thielen, like I said, depends on who's going to be back there in that secondary. On a short week with injuries just happening Sunday, you can't expect too many people to be there. Gordon, he's going to have a big day. Will Fuller, like you had mentioned earlier, with Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller is their number one. And then Kelsey, and you got the Chargers defense. So I got J-Way Bella here all the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to go against you here. I think I have to go for the future in this one.
Okay.
I think J-Way needs to consider going to the waiver wire to get a quarterback this week. I just, after seeing what Buffalo was able to do to Kirk Cousins last week, I mean, going up against Ndamukong Suh and it's bad. His name is escaping me at the moment.
Aaron
But
Donald.
the other guy there, thank you, Aaron Donald over in Los Angeles. I consider sitting Kirk Cousins this week, and there's plenty of options available on the waiver wire for a 1-week substitution. Even Cooks and Thielen, I think I'd probably give the edge to Thielen there, even though I just had to sit his quarterback, just because you had mentioned earlier the Rams secondary is a little banged up. I think Cooks could be on the short end of the stick this week. I think one of the 3 wide receivers is going to feast for the Rams. I don't think it's going to be Cooks this week. We'll see. There's more question marks on J-Way's side from the matchup perspective than there is for me on the build for the future side. I think Miller, his offensive line is terrible. I think that's kind of affected Deshaun Watson more than I would have liked to see. I think Connor's going to get plenty of work against the Ravens. How effective he'll be, we'll see. Gurley's Gurley. He's going to do fine. Evans, I think, will be okay. I'm going to go for the future here, as much as it pains me to say it.
Yeah, and I mean it's a good team. I just it's all about risk and reward here, and I think there's going to be something that happens on J-Way Bella's team that's unexpected, whether it be Carlos Hyde has another big game, or Thielen could have another 10 catches, 150 yards, and he could have 2 touchdowns. Kelsey could go off again. There's definitely a lot of ifs there, but if 1 or 2 of those hit, I feel better on it. So that's why I'm going the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, I will give you, probably the best player in this matchup is Melvin Gordon against the 49ers, at home. I think that's going to be a blowout by the Chargers, and he should get plenty of third and fourth quarter carries to maintain a lead. So I think he'll be the highest scorer this week out of anybody in any team, but, we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be a good matchup. And last but not least, we got the game of the week, the Shitter Bowl. We got 0-3 right-handed destruction versus 0-3 Johnny. I want to score more. Why don't you take this one?
Well, I probably would have picked your team going into this week had you not gone against me in my matchup. So just out of spite, I'm going to go with Johnny. I want to score more here.
Ooh, okay.
But
all right.
I do think between Saquon Barkley, Aaron Rodgers, DeAndre Hopkins, right there, that's 80 points in any given week. So if those 3 guys be who he needs them to be, then he should run away with us pretty cleanly. I'm interested to see what he does at tight end this week. I think he's going to look to the waiver wire, so we'll see what that looks like tomorrow morning when waivers clear. Jesse James was clearly negatively affected by the return of Vance McDonald, as was Mr. Sutton over there on Tampa Bay. I mean, that guy just got destroyed.
Oh,
Vance McDonald. That was probably one of my favorite football players I've seen in a long time.
That was so embarrassing.
Yeah. But beyond that, on your side of the ball, I'm with you. I think Kareem Hunt gets fed a little bit more here moving forward. I think they're just going to try and take the foot off the pedal a little bit with Mahomes. Just to, they have playoff aspirations. I think it's an easy path there. So, best way to get there is just keep the ball on the ground. Sanders should be phenomenal against a very porous Chiefs defense. They're just not good, and they're finding every which way to get Emmanuel Sanders the ball and give him opportunities to make plays. Shepard, we talked about, he should feast. You do have plenty of buys this week, so it's not like it's going to be too hard for you to choose who to play.
Yeah.
I think Allen Robinson's in a good spot against the Bucs. I think that should be a higher scoring game, so he should get plenty of targets. So like I said, had you not gone against me earlier, I probably would have went with you, but I got Johnny. I want to score more, getting his first win this week.
All right. Well, spite will kill you sometimes. So I got, as you mentioned, a ton of bye. I got Alex Smith, C.J. Anderson, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson, and DJ Moore. On the other side, Carolina Panthers defense. So Johnny, I want to score more, has to go out and get a defense. Obviously, I don't like throwing Theo Riddick out there. I just hope Dallas can keep it close so he stays in a little longer, gets a couple passes, gets me 8 points or so, and I would be happy. Denver defense, going to be interesting. See if I pick up another defense or not. Going up against Kansas City, it is a high-powered offense. Even if Mahomes does regress a little, they're still going to put points up. You kind of hit the nail on the head with Shepard and Sanders. I think Eifert actually has a big week going up against a poor Atlanta defense. Njoku, I'd love to start him, but I got to see something first, and he just hasn't done anything the first few weeks. On the other side of the ball, what was that? Baker, yeah. I mean, when he came in, he had a nice catch down the middle. So I think it's a better matchup for Eifert this week. As you mentioned, on the other side, Jesse James, I hope he keeps him. That's all I'm going to say there. Rodgers, he's going to get his points. He's been immobile the past few weeks, but he's still doing what he does. Barkley and Hopkins, they're going to have good days. Buck Allen, very touchdown dependent. It is a poor Steelers defense he's going against, so that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Crabtree has not done much there. I was listening to another show, and they had mentioned that Flacco's really never had a Michael Crabtree type for someone to just go up and get the ball, just throw it to him. He's always needed his receivers to get separation, so it should be interesting to see if that continues going forward. And then obviously I'm taking myself here. I think it's going to be a very good game, but one of us needs to win this. I think whoever goes 0-4 here, you're looking for that first round pick after that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It'll be a fun one to watch though, and I think you kind of hit it on the head with Joe Flacco and Michael Crabtree. He does kind of need a receiver to create separation. I think that's why we've seen the emergence of John Brown over the first 3 weeks, because he's exactly that type of receiver, and
Yep.
He's been getting a ton of looks, especially in the red zone, which for a receiver of his size, I think is notable. You couple that with the production, specifically the touchdown production from Buck Allen. I think Flacco and Crabtree are still kind of developing a rapport, but I think that should, in a game like they have against the Steelers, that they should find it pretty quickly. So we'll see. This will be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, I think all around there's pretty good matchups this week. So we're gonna break script a little here. We're gonna save the hot takes till the end, and Daly has a couple things he'd like to say about the future of the league. Take it away, sir.
Well, I'll try and keep it short. I know we're pushing an hour already, and I know you like to try and keep it below an hour. But obviously, we went through a pretty drastic change in the offseason, going from standard scoring to a modified PPR scoring. And, I don't know, how do you feel about that? Are you happy with the results of it through the first 3 weeks of the season? Did it play out how you expected? Or do you miss standard scoring? What do you feel about it?
I definitely think in a dynasty league, changing a rule like that, it's going to affect people either one way or the other. Nobody's really going to be neutral about it. When you're first drafting, picking through rookie drafts, and it's standard scoring, you're looking differently than if you're looking at PPR. So the scores obviously have been higher. I don't think I've seen the tight end points. I thought they were going to be a little higher. I haven't seen too much there, but for a couple of my guys, it kind of hurts, especially when I had Geist go down. AP, he doesn't really catch the ball. Sanders, he catches a couple balls a game. No, I don't think it affected my team too much. Josh Gordon doesn't catch a touch of balls when he plays. But I think overall it's definitely a different dynamic now.
Yeah, and I think I think you hit the nail on the head. You draft differently, you strategize differently, and I think it was just too much too soon. I don't think we had enough of buy-in from the owners to implement the change. So I think that's something that the league as a whole needs to take a step back and consider, for the future of, when we make changes like this, is it enough just to have a simple majority? I think a major change like this should require a super majority, at least, 7 owners buying in. For small changes, I think a simple majority is fine. For example, I think defenses should be given 2 points per fourth down stop, just because that's probably one of the biggest plays you can make on defense.
Interesting.
So, things like that I think are fine to make in the off season and to have a simple majority on, but I firmly think we should have a little bit of a constitutional review period and take a step back and reevaluate things. I also think there should be a 1-season buffer, for major changes like this. I think just to make it in the off season and put it in place for the next season, the dynasty league is very short-sighted. Take for example, I traded Hunter Henry and Tyreek Hill for Devontae Freeman, which I loved in the standard league and I hate now. I think Hunter Henry's going to be a beast next year for a tight end with the premium, and we all seen what Tyreek Hill can do. Whereas last year, not having a solid RB2, was a difference between the playoffs and the championship. I think we need a supermajority in place for major changes. I think we need a one-season buffer in place for major changes, and I think it's important to get it in place now. Because in my opinion, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when we expand the league, from 10 to 12 teams.
I agree.
So I think getting these things in place now will better prepare us for when that change does happen, and make sure that, our veterans aren't negatively affected as severely as they could be by bringing some new teams. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for the league to grow and evolve in the future. I think if we brought in 2 new teams, we could implement divisions. Maybe a little hood versus state, like Dynasty League. I think that'd be interesting. 1 new team per division.
Yeah.
They get $100 blind bidding dollars to start the blind bid auction, and they get the 11th and 12th overall picks in the rookie draft. Maybe determined by the winner of hood versus state. Who knows? So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. The one last thing I'll say is, I think we should strongly consider moving to an Empire League. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have not.
So it's a pretty interesting dynamic. It's basically a full dynasty league, except every year a percentage of the pot is set aside until you have a back-to-back winner. So, for example, Kyle won the first 2 seasons. So that second season, he would have been crowned the Empire, or the Emperor. He would have gotten the normal payout plus whatever percentage has been set aside from the previous season. But then at that point, once you have an Empire, the league resets back to 0, and then you start from scratch. It's an interesting dynamic. I think it's something, we could consider putting in place in the future. But I think everything starts with a little bit of a review of our current processes and getting a supermajority in place for those type of, getting that 1-season buffer. So that's pretty much what I had to say about that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing it up on this forum, and I think very interesting points. The buffer definitely for big changes will be nice, or super majority. Should be interested to see, now that we have a vice commissioner, what he's going to take away from this. Now that we have people actually voicing their opinions on here, see if he listens, understands the needs of the league, and what will be best going forward.
So it'd be interesting to see if the vice commissioner, as you just mentioned, because last podcast you only acknowledged 1 commissioner, so if you'll bring him on your podcast to respond, and if so, will you acknowledge him as the vice commissioner? That I'm interested to see.
Well, I mean, it depends. He's kind of in that interim period for me. As I mentioned, I know a commissioner, but until this vice commissioner does something, then he's just another team for me.
Well, either way, I appreciate the platform. Hopefully he'll take the opportunity to respond next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quickly, let's go through our hot takes. I got 2. I'm going to go with one of mine first. I got the Giants winning a shootout over the Saints. Eli keeps rolling, throws 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. I think it all depends upon the matchup we foreshadowed earlier between Jenkins and Thomas. Jenkins does his job and Eli does his. I think we could very well see the Giants pull out a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you got for me?
So I said it, I think, in the group text, but I'm going to double down on it here on the podcast. I think Kyle is absolutely 100% wrong about the Tennessee running back situation.
That's the way it's looking.
Deion Lewis is by far the best running back in Tennessee this season.
Yeah, I mean, Henry just has not looked good. They've had some injuries on the offensive line. The offense in general has not looked as good as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's been tough sledding for them, here to start the season. But maybe not so much of a hot take given what we've seen so far, but I think Kyle is very, very wrong in his perception of the running back situation.
Yeah, I mean, he said Henry was going to be a top 5 running back at the end of the year. He's going to have to do a lot more after the first 3 weeks to make that happen. My last hot take is going to be, I think Minnesota bounces back. I think it was just a weird game, whatever reason. They really didn't take it seriously or whatnot. They take the Rams down, especially with the Rams having some secondary issues, and Minnesota turns the Rams over twice in that game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not the hottest take, but I think, I can definitely see the path forward as you just outlined it.
Yeah. It's going to be a great Thursday night game, though. I like when there's a good Thursday night
100%.
game. I also like when most of my players aren't playing on Thursday night. But yeah, I want to say I appreciate you coming on here, Daly. I think it was a great podcast today. Had some great opinions. Like that you voiced some concerns here. Maybe we'll get you back on later in the season.
I appreciate you having me. I have one more hot take to leave you with.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield is a top 10 fantasy quarterback rest of the season.
All right, so from week 4 on, he's a top 10 quarterback.
Top 10 quarterback week 4 on.
Okay, I mean, and the thing is, and people know I'm not the biggest Baker guy, you didn't see him use his legs at all the first game, so once he gets a little more comfortable, starts doing that, he's going to have a pretty high floor.
Yeah, he's gonna be good. So Greg, I might be coming to you for a trade here in the future.
Well, seems like you got a couple trades in mind already. I appreciate it, man. You have a good rest of the night, and everybody else, thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks for having me.